Bowen, McLeod's Director of Product Marketing, and your host for McLeod Insights. Today's broadcast is a conversation from McLeod's recent user conference and features our customer, Lindsey Graves, COO of Sunset Transportation. Lindsey was interviewed by Deborah Lockridge, the editor-in-chief of Heavy Duty Trucking. In this conversation, you'll learn about Lindsey's history with the family-owned company and their phenomenal growth over the last decade. Lindsey gives us her perspective on the importance of company culture and shares how they work to grow their leadership team in such a fast-growing company, but at the right pace. And at the same time they were growing their services, they deliver freight to Sunset customers. Lindsey explains how Sunset Transportation has made their use of the technology they own an essential part of their process improvement and growth strategy. We hope you enjoy the broadcast.
Hi, I'm Deborah Lockridge. I'm editor-in-chief of Heavy Duty Trucking, and welcome to Leadership Discussions, part of McLeod Software's virtual user conference this year. Today, I am talking to Lindsey Graves. She is COO of Sunset Transportation, a non-asset-based 3PL based in St. Louis. About 15 years ago, Lindsey joined the company founded by her father, and we're going to explore some of the keys to success behind Sunset's growth during that time. So Lindsey, let's start with a little background about the company and about how you got involved.
Thanks, Deborah. Looking forward to sharing my story a little bit today. I've been with Sunset for 15 years now, but before I joined formally, my father started the company in the basement of his home. So I've been around the company for my whole life. I would come in during the summers and help out. I would do any kind of filing and bank reconciliation. I was basically just put to work, and I loved being at the office because it was mostly family. So long story, my father started in a family business, and he actually didn't get along with his brothers and sisters. So I always thought, even though my family owned the company, that it wasn't something that I wanted to do to be part of my family business. So I went on my own path and went to college and didn't take any logistics courses, even though my father really encouraged me to. And after college, by accident, I came back to the company. My dad needed somebody to help bill part-time. And I sat down and started billing, and then started asking a lot of questions and really starting to learn more about the business and understanding that there was a lot of common similarities that I had learned in college and things that I had learned growing up about the business that I really enjoyed. So I started to ask more questions. And then before I knew it, from a billing position, I was in a tracking position. And then from a tracking position, I ended up being a broker. And from a broker, I ended up started working in our marketing department and then managing our agent offices. And then most recently, I became our VP of operations, and now I am actually our COO. And so I've done a little bit of everything in the company over my 15 years here.
So tell us a little bit about what the company does today.
So Sunset is a third-party, non-asset-based logistics company. And really, we're a little bit different than a standard brokerage because we're not just a brokerage. We do a large amount of LTL business. We're also a freight audit and payment company. So we have always been heavily involved with our customers and understanding understanding their data. Data is a big part of our work with our customers, and we do a lot of consulting. We take a very strong consultative approach with our customers from a logistics management position.
And you told me when we were getting ready for this conversation that the company has grown quite a bit since you got involved.
We
Tell us
have.
a little bit about that.
When I first joined the company 15 years ago, we were around a $17 million company. And this year we're going to finish out at $190 million. So we have had some aggressive growth year over year, and it's been mostly organic. I feel we are very blessed to say that organically, we've been able to grow by retaining and growing within a lot of existing customers, and a lot of business has been referral. We're very blessed to have that growth. We've done one acquisition, and that was 3 years ago. And that was a $15 million brokerage that we actually met through the TIA. shows. My father and the owner of that company became friends many, many years ago through going to different TIA shows together. And it was a natural fit when he wanted to retire. And so we plan on doing more acquisitions because it's hard to get the type of growth we're looking for organically. So acquisitions definitely something that is very interesting to me and is heavily an area I'm heavily involved in.
Well, we've all heard of acquisitions that did not go well. What were some of the keys to making this one work?
Yes, that's a very good point. Acquisitions, I think the most important thing that has to fit is the culture. And I know it can be so generic for everybody just to say the culture. What does that mean? But truly, you have to have a common reason for the acquisition to happen in the first place. And in this situation, we had a lot of similarities because we were both family-built businesses. We had family within the different businesses. We cared about our employees and that we wanted to make sure that every employee stayed part of the company. It was important to make sure everyone was paid, if not the same, but better. Those are just some examples, that culture and how we treat our employees had to be there, and it had to be a mutual benefit for both of the organizations. Another example was, with this acquisition we did, they were really struggling to get over a $15 million revenue a year hurdle. They had year after year had been hitting that same revenue number and couldn't get over that, even though they were making investments in technology. Well, I commonly see that it's a common hurdle, I think, in our industry to get over, because there's such a large mountain that you have to climb of expenses before you can really reach that next level, because you're having to hire on talent such as a CFO. You're having to buy technology like McLeod. That's a large investment, and it's going to take a while before you see a return on your investment. So I think, there's a lot of opportunity and synergies to be had. And that's why, acquisitions can be a really, really positive for both organizations, such as the one we did 3 years ago.
So as you've grown organically, obviously you had to get through that challenge yourself, that $15 million revenue ceiling, the need for making those technology investments. So talk a little bit about that. How did you know what you needed to do? How did you figure out justify the expense? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I joined the organization 15 years ago, my dad had just hired our CFO. And thankfully, we had a strong leadership team organically at that point. We had a strong salesperson, my father, myself, and then our CFO. And really, I think organizational development was the hardest area for growth among all the different areas of investments we had to make, because you have to know when to add each person. When's the right time to make that investment in that person, and when is it going to show you a return? So really, I just tried to pay as close attention to I can about what our needs were of our customers and what our needs were internally for our employees. And one of those examples would be a business analyst to help us get to the root of our data. McLeod was a big investment for us and very powerful, that allowed us to propel our growth very naturally just from the access to the system. But, a key personnel to have, in my opinion, would be a business analyst who can help you really get at that data and utilize it to make decisions internally, and also to help your customers learn more about their business so you can be a bigger advocate for them and their business growth.
Great. I want to get back to that data in just a minute, but I also wanted to touch on, I understand you mentioned you went to college, you got a marketing degree, not logistics, but I think that's something that a lot of companies maybe in transportation don't think about. They're really good at doing what they do. They don't think as much about how do you market that. Tell me more about what you brought from that degree into the company to help that growth and success.
I think a marketing degree is an area I have seen in our industry become more and more common, which is exciting to see, because when I remember my first TIA conference, realizing that I was very unique in our industry and in my experience. But marketing is everything about your organization. In our business, we're selling our people. Our people are our product. So internally, marketing is just important as your external marketing. You have to know who you are as an organization in order to successfully sell it or market it. So my real focus for our organization is keeper of the culture. That's what I call my title, keeper of the culture, because my role is really to communicate and to share and to make sure that from a marketing perspective internally, I'm doing everything possible to make sure that we're keeping true to who we are, and that then resonates through to our external marketing and to our customers and to our brand.
Now, I think we've all maybe seen companies that the whole, values and culture thing seems to be just lip service. How do you get people to live these values? How do you reinforce that culture internally?
That's a really good question. A lot of people will just put their core values in words on their wall and think that their organization has strong core values.
Right.
But you have to actually live those core values. So a couple of things that I've done we've created a video that every new employee watches when they start about our core values, which is a process in itself to develop, but it's a very important one. We developed our core values through a process from our leadership team all the way down through our directors and then through the rest of the organization. But once they were defined, this video we created is basically characters that display the behavior of those core values, because every person can determine a different way of a word like flexible as one of our core values. They could totally relate to that differently. So that's why the video was important for every new employee to watch, so that they could understand what we meant by flexible as an organization. The other thing that we came up with, which was something we found on Google, so anyone is welcome to the idea, but it's a core value award system where basically we, every month, we have the ability for every employee to nominate a peer for a core value that peer displayed. They are able to go to our intranet and submit a nomination form. At the end of the month, our leadership team goes through all the nominations and picks a winner for each one of those core values. We then publish those situations on our intranet and an email to the organization so that everybody can see the winners of the Sunset Way core value award. So we announce one winner, and each winner receives a pin for that core value, and we have a lanyard that. So a little display. The first person or anybody in the organization to get all 5 core value pins gets $500. And they can win that throughout their sunset journey multiple times. So it's just a really neat way to see, and for your peer nomination, and then also to see the behaviors displayed through the organization, which represent each one of our core values.
Okay, great. Well, speaking of people and that culture while you're growing, I know you mentioned about different generations, and different people have different learning styles, wants, and needs. What are some examples of how you've tackled that issue?
So when my father was around the organization and managing, people always joked that if you didn't hear anything from Jim, it meant you were doing a good job. So no news was good news. No feedback was great news.
Right.
The generations today, like the millennials, and I'm a millennial, like to have feedback. Feedback is important for our development. We want to know. We want to hear how we can improve. So I've done some research and studying on the generational gaps and how to fulfill some of those gaps. And one example is by feedback. So we've actually moved from a yearly review to a quarterly review system where we're required to check in with who we manage. And it's not as much of a formal review. It's more of a, how are things going? Is there anything we should be talking about? And it's an opportunity to get feedback about performance without it being a formal review. That's been extremely valuable. Not only that, but feedback and or personal development. That's another area that millennials specifically look for within an organization. So it's very important among our culture to do development work with all of our supervisors regularly. And then also throughout the organization, we have a certain amount of training that we do monthly, time that we require from everybody, and topics that we roll out every month.
Great. So obviously another key part of growth is customers and your relationship with those customers. What are some of the things that you've seen that make a successful partnership with those customers?
That is the key to all of our success, because we don't want to be seen as just a transaction by our customers. We want to be seen as an extension of their business. So really, in order to make that successful, I think we truly have to be able to be an extension of our customers. We have to understand their business better than they do. We have to be able to use our tools like McLeod to pull data, to be able to tell them a story about what their business is doing and help them to see where they can make improvements. That provides value that can't be replaced. So that's a huge area of where we are true partners to our customers.
And one thing that I hear a lot in my job reporting on the industry is the ever increasing importance of that visibility for shippers into their shipments, real time as well as more longer term kind of analytics. How does that look with Sunset and your customers, and how are you using the cloud's data to help you with that?
So a couple of just very simple examples I can think of would be the service failure report within McLeod. You can very easily pull, it's a standard report within McLeod, you can pull to be able to determine where service failures are happening. Are they happening on the customer side? Are they happening with the shipper? Or are they happening with the carrier? Or are they happening internally? So you can pull that data and slice and dice and figure out, are there certain shippers that are having issues getting loaded? That brings me to detention and accessorial reports. You can see if there are certain shippers which are causing detention with carriers, and that maybe they need to have a discussion with. If you let your customer know, then they can work with their shipper or their vendor better. So those are just a couple examples that are super easy to pull out of McLeod, but we are so lucky with our McLeod platform to be able to get to every single piece of data you can imagine. And the sky is really the limit to what kind of story you want to tell with it.
How do you keep from getting overwhelmed by there's so much data that you can use? How do you pick what to start with?
I think you start simple and you have conversations with your customers, and then you see where conversations arise and what they're looking for. Really, that's how we've continued to grow over the years, is by listening to our customers and developing that database, and then sharing those best practice questions with other customers. The other thing is hire a good business analyst who can help you tell the story with the data.
And on the other side of things, obviously you've got carriers that you work with. Tell us about how you manage those relationships to make sure that you're serving those customers, those shipper customers, with the best carriers.
So this is a really exciting new thing that we've rolled out just recently. We rolled out a core carrier program. And the reason we were able to do this was a lot of help from McLeod and the new carrier scorecard. Within the tool, we're able to actually score every carrier in our system. And it's really given us amazing visibility to who the carriers are that we should be working with. From that data, we also looked at kind of how often we were working with those carriers, not only their scoring based on some criteria we were able to pick, but how often we were working with them. And we were able to tell through the system that by far, the more times we work with a carrier, the better our service is, the more profitable we are as an organization. So we have put a whole marketing plan around what's called our core carrier program, where we identified those carriers we deemed to be our top carriers. And then we actually sent out an award to each one of those carriers. It's a medal, and it basically says, thank you for being a core carrier. And it encourages them to continue to work with us further and the benefits about a stronger partnership. So there was a lot of internal marketing we did to push internally why we should work with repeat carriers, why we should lessen the number of one and done carriers. And then those awards that we were given to the other carriers was really good timing with Driver Appreciation Week. We got lucky there. And then also it's been received really well as just an acknowledgement that, there are good brokers out there and that they do value, our carriers that want to do a good job and want to have a lasting partnership. So anyway, that's just an example of how we're trying to both internally and externally market to carriers and try and build a longer partnership and what the benefits are.
Now, HGT's primary audience is actually the carriers. And, there are, let's just say some brokers don't have a good reputation. What's your advice for carriers? How do you find, brokers and 3PLs to work with, that aren't going to take advantage? What would be your advice for the small trucking company maybe that was looking to get out from that sort of transactional load boards, kind of a relationship?
Well, my advice to them would be to work with who you enjoy working with. It's not always about the bottom line. I get that everybody needs to be profitable, but there are good brokers out there who want to do what's right for both you and them. And they're looking out for they will look out for your best interests as well. And if there are certain lanes that you enjoy running, or certain areas, or if you're looking to get home every day or whatnot, find a broker that you can really have a transparent relationship with and talk to them about what your needs are. And their job is to help you help us. So it can be a mutual partnership, mutual benefit. And I think that's really the key to success for our business.
So no doubt it's been a crazy year with the way the pandemic has affected logistics. How have you dealt with the challenges posed by COVID-19?
It's been a fun year, all right. No, actually, to put a positive spin on it, I have always struggled with getting our organization really to be in touch with each other. We have 154 employees now, and the bigger we get, the harder it is to really touch base with everybody. And, we all know Zoom has existed and Teams has existed, but until really forced into a situation where we had to use it, we haven't been doing so. And we have 7 branch offices across the country where I should have been having meetings, face-to-face meetings with our managing directors there. But point being, I organized a biweekly directors level call via Teams, and it has been the most powerful thing for our organization. We all feel more connected than we've ever felt. So, in light of the situation, the biggest positive to come from that is the communication improvement, the connection, and just seeing everybody's faces and realizing, we like each other. We like working with each other. So why not take advantage of the screen time?
And it's not just a disembodied voice on the phone or an email or something like that. Have you found yourself using that any with customers or with carriers?
That's an interesting question, because I have recently been pushing that. Nobody's been traveling to see customers yet. It's still, touch and go. So we've really challenged our sales team to get on Zoom, get on Teams, use the technology. Everybody is, adapting to it. There shouldn't be an excuse why we can't get in front of customers right now. So yes, we're starting to use it. And I really think it's going to change the landscape of our business and many businesses. But, I don't think it's for the worse. It's going to improve and speed up the quality of communication.
Even once we're able to actually go have meetings in person, you think we'll still keep using Zoom will it be a habit?
I do. I think it'll be easier for people to just jump on a call, and might as well make it Zoom. I really do. And I think the connection is greater when you see someone's face than if it's just a phone call.
It is. I agree. We're seeing the same thing, having virtual meetings, our editorial team and interviews, and it really makes a difference. So just to kind of start to wrap up here, if you had one takeaway that you'd like our audience to get out of our conversation today, what would that be?
The one takeaway I hope everyone in the audience takes with them today is that I'm going to give McLeod a little plug. We are all very fortunate to be operating on a system as powerful as McLeod, and there are a lot of tools that McLeod gives us access to. And I think we didn't talk a ton about this today, but really a big part of, I think, of Sunset success is utilizing the tools to their fullest capacity. You know, we have a system that you can use at very basic, but then there are also a lot of tools like all the reports I talked about and these carrier scorecards, some new features there. If you really take the time and the resources to invest in those tools, they will help produce growth for you. So that would be my biggest takeaway is take advantage of McLeod, use the tools, use their resources because they will help propel your growth.
Yeah, and I think we talked when we talked before about how it's easy to have software and never really use it to its full capacity, and so there's all sorts of opportunities there, to really make use of that technology and the tools at your disposal. So, all right, well, great. Well, thank you so much once again. This is Deborah Lockridge, Editor-in-Chief at Heavy Duty Trucking. I've been talking to Lindsey Graves, COO of Sunset Transportation. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Deborah. Enjoyed talking to you.